Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are so excited to talk with Anna Rose Johnson about her Michigan Notable Book Award winning The Star That Always Stays. So I'm going to let her introduce herself and then we'll delve into this author conversation.
Well, thank you so much. I am really delighted to be here. It's such a wonderful thing to be able to talk about this book with you. I'm just been so thrilled ever since I heard the news about the award. And so, yeah, I'm just very happy to be able to do this. I'm Anna Rose Johnson, and I am a historical middle grade author. And I love writing books for young people. I actually live in northern Wisconsin. So I've been to Michigan, many, many times and love it there. And I just, I am just so thrilled to be able to do this.
I'm so excited. We're really looking forward to talking with you. It's such a beautiful book. And I love you said you're like, I am a middle grade historical fiction author. I mean, I love that the fact that you are like middle grade, because that is an age group that a lot of authors kind of overlook. Or it's hard to write for, it really is. So I love that you're like focused on that.
Well, thank you. Yes, I really love that age group, being able to write for that group. I love middle grade novels. They are my absolute favorite. It's kind of a genre of books, I would say. So yeah, it was really a dream come true to be able to publish a middle grade novel. So yeah, and to have it be this book, The Star That Always Stays, which was really the book of my heart, that was just an extra wonderful bonus.
I love it. Oh, man. Well, you told us a little bit about yourself. You gave us some of your background, but I'm wondering, how did you become a writer?
Yes. So I really can't really remember a time when I wasn't writing stories. It was always something that I did. It was something that I loved doing growing up. I spent a lot of my time working on all different kinds of stories. And I just always knew that I wanted to be an author. That was my dream. And I worked on it very much, throughout, my younger years. And then as a teenager, I started writing more seriously with, a goal of publication. And that was kind of when I began focusing specifically on middle grade and especially historicals. I had always liked reading and watching historical stories. And so finally one day I'm like, well, maybe I should just, try writing historicals. Maybe I should move away from contemporary, because I love this so much. And so that's when things really started to click. And I started work on this book. And it went through a lot of drafts. That was a long revision process as I worked to get it just right. And so, yeah, I just worked on writing for a long time. And then things started to fall into place. I got my agent, and then I was able to get the book deal with this book. So yeah, it's been just a wonderful journey of pursuing publication. So yeah, it's been great.
I love it though. There's a lot of hard work. You said multiple revisions. That's quite a process beyond having to do multiple revisions.
Yes.
What is your writing process? Do you have any special tips and tricks?
Yes. So my process is, I don't think, a lot different from other writers. I will take a few months to plan out the book and, do the research, select the time period that I want to write in. and the setting, and do the research on that. And then I also brainstorm with other writers and with my mentors, and, get feedback, on the different aspects of the new book. And so that takes a few months. And then for the next few months after that, then I do the first draft. And so it takes a lot, because I try and get the first draft pretty good. I want to be something I can really work with down the road. And so that takes a while. And then I set it aside. A lot of people advise that that's a good idea, to give yourself a little bit of distance from a first draft so you can think it over and then come back to it with fresh eyes. So that's something I try to do as well. And so then after that, then I work on the second draft, and usually that's pretty solid. And then I go from there. Sometimes I'll do another one. Sometimes I will send it to a content editor, get their thoughts on it. And so, then it just goes from there.
Wow. I love that the setting it aside, you being like, okay, just take a little break.
Yep.
Let it ripen.
Yes, absolutely.
That's smart. I love that. So for this book specifically, I'll just show it again for all of our viewers, The Star That Always Stays. How did you get your idea for The Star That Always Stays?
Yes. That was very fun because I got the idea when I was doing genealogy research on my great-grandmother. And as I kind of looked at this time in her life, when she was about 14 years old, and her parents had just divorced, and her mother was remarrying. And, this was like very beginning of World War I in Europe. And so it was a time of uncertainty, and then knowing that she would have been starting high school around that time. So all these events kind of came together in my mind. And I thought, that might be a very interesting backdrop for a middle grade novel. I thought that could be a really compelling story. So, and then the fact that she was of Ojibwe and French descent, that was another added layer. And so, I started work on it, and I actually started it during National Novel Writing Month. And which is where you try and write a first draft for 50,000 words for the 30 days of November. And so I started out, really strong, and I ended up with only 40,000 words in that first draft.
Only 40,000.
So, I was still really pleased with being able to, to do that much. So that was where it started, just from the research. And then I thought, why not give this little writing challenge a try? And so then from there, it was, then on to trying to rework it into something that I thought could be publishable.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I feel like there's a lot of people who do NaNoWriMo, right? Isn't it?
Yep.
And they were like, I'm going to do this. And it's exciting to hear kind of a success story from that, It's like, wasn't immediate, but you got that big chunk right there.
Yep.
So cool.
And it's really good to just keep it going, get the process going a little bit faster than you would otherwise, when you might be tempted to try and, really take it slow at the beginning to make sure you're getting it right. No, you just kind of have to plow through.
Throw the words on a page.
Yes.
It is good. It kind of gets over that like writing block.
Yes.
Even if it gets highly edited later. They don't need to know that.
Right.
And so I think you've kind of answered this already, of how would you define this work, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
I would say that as far as like the theme of the book goes, I've seen the book described, a lot of different ways in like reviews, and that's really fun to see. I would say that it's really about a girl who, you know, finds a sense of belonging and self-acceptance. And what I found is that many of the stories that I write, including my next book that is coming out in March, I find a lot of them feature like young girls who, you know, they find themselves in a new place, and then in a way they kind of find themselves, or, you know, new ways of looking at things. And I find that's kind of a theme that comes up again and again in my writing. And I really like that. I feel like it gives, you know, this cohesive quality to my different stories. And each time I approach it a different way, but I feel like having that at the heart of a story just really makes it very meaningful.
Yeah, definitely. And it's such a universal experience, you know,
Yes.
having to deal with that journey, that transition, and figuring out who you are. That's a big one.
Yep.
Oh man. And so I guess it's probably a giveaway of who are your favorite characters, but who are your favorite characters, and what are some of your favorite pieces within this book?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I have a few different favorite characters. I mean, I really liked writing all of them. And I think a lot of writers feel that way. But I loved writing Norvia, the main character. I feel like she was a lot, you know, like me as a teen. And so that made it kind of fun to write. And then also her younger sister, Dicta, and her stepbrother, Vernon. I loved writing them. They were probably the most fun to write. Oh. Dicta especially was just, you know, I would try to make her very, very funny. And it's nice to be able to have a more comedic character to sort of lighten some of the heavier moments in a story. And yeah, Dicta was a little bit like me as a child. So I like having that as sort of like the two of them in the story, reminding me of myself at different ages. Mm-hmm. That makes it really nice. So yeah, it was fun in working on the book, because, you know, writing through so many different drafts and revisions, that, for example, with Dicta, you know, I wanted her to be this very vivacious character, kind of in contrast to Norvia, who's a little bit, you know, quieter and more introspective. And I knew that I needed that to, you know, to kind of offer some balance. So then I was, you know, was writing her that way. And then later on, I was looking at Dicta's high school yearbook, the real Dicta. And yeah, I started looking, I'm like, well, I think I kind of, you know, got her personality right. She definitely does seem very vivacious.
Yeah. Isn't that fun when you're able to see from a picture that you're like, yeah, I get your personality.
Yes. Yeah.
I can tell what you were like. I love
well,
it.
Like there were these different jokes throughout the yearbook that she wrote. And I'm like, well, then I'm glad that I made her a funny character then.
You're like, I could just sense it. She was the class clown. I love it.
For sure.
And what did it mean to have your work selected as a Michigan Notable Book? You touched on it a little bit, but, you know, mm-hmm. I'll let you talk about it more.
Yes. No, I was so excited to learn the news about it. I'm so grateful. It means a lot to me. You know, I'm from Wisconsin, but I have, you know, these deep family roots in Michigan and a lot of family there. And being so fascinated with Michigan history for a long time now. And yeah, having done so much research at the Library of Michigan and other Michigan libraries, which was amazing, so helpful, by the way. And it was just to be recognized then by the Library of Michigan for this award was absolutely amazing. It totally made my day, you know, my week. It was, you know, it's just so special because so much of the book, you know, is firmly rooted in Michigan. I really tried to, you know, make the setting a, you know, real important part of the story. So yeah, when I learned the news, I was just thrilled.
It's wonderful.
Oh, and I recently got the paperback, which is coming out in September, and it has the seal on it.
Oh, that looks great.
So yeah, I was very pleased to see that on it.
That's so exciting. Well, I think that's exciting too. I'm like, ooh, it's so official.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we were so excited for you to receive this award. I mean, you can just tell the research that you put into it. And I do love how you say, you know, there's, even though you're in Wisconsin, there's such deep roots with Michigan. And that's so true with our histories. We're so intertwined, the two states. So I love
absolutely.
it. So cool. And now here's your chance to do a little bit of that elevator pitch. Why do you think people should read your book now in paperback?
Yes. Well, I would say that a lot of people have kind of compared it, you know, even my publisher, just in the little description, compared it to like Anne of Green Gables and Little Women. And I know there are so many people, you know, like myself who, you know, love those stories so much. And I would say that if you are a fan of that kind of story, you know, the classic girls coming of age kind of story, then I definitely think that you should check out this book. Because it's, you know, very much like those, but it has a character from a Native background, and that's something a little bit different. And I think that having this story kind of mirror those older classics, but include, you know, a heroine with a different culture, I think that just adds something else. And so I really hope that people who love those books will find this one too, and find that it's, you know, kind of an old friend.
Yeah, I love it. An old friend. That's a great way to put it.
Thank you.
And now, which writers and books are you currently reading? Because we always like to give other authors a chance to shine
yes.
too.
Well, at the moment, I have been hosting a vintage kidlit summer reading challenge with a friend of mine, like on our blogs and Instagram, and that's been really delightful. So we've actually been kind of reading a lot of vintage authors, you know, from like 50s or 60s, and so that's been quite fun. But I did want to mention that I recently read Long Road to the Circus by Betsy Bird, which won Michigan Notable Book Award. I think it was last year.
2022, yeah.
And yes, and I loved reading that because it had all of that same, you know, Michigan history from a similar time frame. And I could just tell all of the research that she had done with it. And that was such a great story.
Yeah, I was very fun. I got to sit in on one of her presentations, and you know, she has photos of Madame Morantat and the ostriches, and you're right. I think that's such a good comparison to your book. Like, I feel like those two are such good companion books.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Like, that fits. Well, it was just wonderful talking with you today, Anna Rose, and you know, I'm excited for your next book to come out. Even if it's not set in Michigan, I'm still excited.
This one actually is.
Oh, good. I will definitely be paying attention then.
Well, I'm excited.
Yeah, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And best of luck with your vintage children's reading list and any future projects.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. I love getting to talk about the book. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And you have a wonderful day.
Yes, you too.
Bye.
Bye.